Hunger is a slow predator. Unlike the storm that strikes with fury, or the wolves that threaten with teeth, hunger creeps quietly, digging deeper with each passing hour. The young man has survived the storm. He has faced predators and lived. But now, he confronts an enemy more relentless, more intimate. The emptiness inside his own body. Days pass. The few roots and berries he gathers offer little sustenance. The fish evade his traps. The animals remain hidden in the dense forest. His muscles ache not from exertion, but from weakness. Each step feels heavier, each thought slower. Even the act of lifting his knife, once sharp and swift, now takes effort. The forest does not care. The trees stand silent, ancient, indifferent to his suffering. The stream rushes on, its waters clear and cold, but water alone cannot feed the body. Hunger gnaws at him in waves, first sharp, then dull, then sharp again, until it becomes a constant ache. At night, it keeps him awake, twisting his stomach, leaving his body trembling with fatigue. And then comes the silence. It is not the silence of peace, but the silence of the mind shutting down. As his energy wanes, the forest sounds grow distant. The birds, the insects, the wind through the leaves, they all fade until only the thudding of his heartbeat remains. The fire crackles, but he no longer reacts to its sound. His focus narrows, his world shrinks to the pain in his gut, the dizziness clouding his vision, the slow blur of his surroundings. Yet even in this darkness, instinct refuses to let go. Somewhere deep within, the will to survive pushes him to keep moving. He drags himself to the stream, forcing handfuls of cold water down his throat, shocking his senses back for a moment. He chews bitter leaves, spits out those that taste wrong, gnaws on bark for even the smallest hint of sustenance. Each action is desperate, animalistic, but survival has no pride. One morning, after hours of restless wandering, he finds it, an opportunity. Dawn breaks over the mountains, and with it, a new urgency. The young man has survived his first night with nothing but fire and sheer willpower, but he knows that without proper shelter, he is at the mercy of nature's wrath. The forest is beautiful, but it is also cruel. Storms can rise without warning. Winds can tear through the trees, and predators lurk in the shadows. To survive here, he must build more than a fire. He must build a home. The search begins. He scans the terrain for a place both hidden and defensible, where he can rest without fear of ambush. After hours of walking, he finds it. A shallow overhang of rock, nestled against a ridge, shielded on one side by towering boulders. It is not perfect, but it is a start. With a spark of determination, he begins the work. Branches are cut, stripped of leaves, and woven into a rough frame. He lays large sticks at angles, creating a sloping roof, then layers it thick with ferns, bark, and moss to keep out the rain. Each movement is deliberate, his hands roughening with blisters, sweat dripping into his eyes. What would take hours in the city, hammering a few nails into a wall, takes days out here. But slowly, steadily, the frame of a shelter begins to rise, a fragile barrier between him and the wilderness. Food remains scarce. As he works, his stomach growls in protest, but hunger cannot stop him. At dusk, he sets traps near animal trails, carefully disguising them with leaves and mud. The traps are simple, loops of vine, pressure trigger snares, but out here, simplicity can mean survival. Each trap is a silent hope, left behind in the shadows of the forest. Night falls again, and he retreats into his half-finished shelter. The walls creak under the wind, and rain seeps through the gaps, chilling him to the bone. He curls closer to the fire, shivering, listening to the howl of unseen predators beyond the treeline. His eyes close, but his sleep is light and broken. Every sound jolts him awake. Every shadow looks ill. In the wilderness, the body is not the only thing tested. Hunger gnaws at the stomach. Cold bites into the skin. Storms break the shelter. But there is a trial far more dangerous, far more relentless than all the others: silence. Days pass without another soul. No voices, no laughter, no human presence. Only the unending sound of the wind in the trees, the drip of water on stone, the distant cries of animals he cannot see. At first, the young man embraces the solitude, believing it is part of the adventure. But as the hours stretch into days, the silence grows heavier, presses on his mind like an invisible weight. He wakes in the mornings to a world that feels unchanged, untouched, eternal. The sun rises, the forest stirs. He gathers food, repairs his shelter, sharpens his tools. By nightfall, he sits by the fire, alone, always alone. There is no voice to answer his questions, no companion to share his fear. His own heartbeat becomes the loudest sound in the night. At first, he talks to himself. Simple words, plans for tomorrow, reminders, fragments of thought spoken aloud. Then the whispers grow. He begins to answer questions no one has asked, to carry conversations with people who are not there. He laughs at his own jokes. He curses at the shadows. The line between thought and sound blurs. One evening, as he watches the fire flicker, he swears he sees movement across the flames. A figure, blurry and indistinct, standing just beyond the light. He blinks and it is gone. Another night, he hears his name called from the forest. He rushes to the edge of the trees, knife in hand, but finds only silence. His breath trembles as he retreats to the fire. Is it the wind, or is it his mind unraveling? The hunger, the exhaustion, the endless solitude. Together they conspire to strip away the walls of reason. His dreams grow vivid, almost too real. In them, he sees faces from home, voices from his past. When he wakes, the echoes linger, and for a moment he cannot tell W. The mountain waits for no one. When the storm finally arrives, it does not creep in gently. It crashes down with all the fury of nature unleashed. The sky darkens until it feels as if the sun has been swallowed whole. Wind howls through the trees, bending trunks like fragile reeds. The first raindrops fall heavy, then faster, until the world is a wall of water. Inside his fragile shelter, the young man braces for battle. The roof rattles and shakes. The walls groan under the pounding rain. Water seeps through cracks despite his efforts, dripping onto his bed of branches. The fire sputters and hisses, choking under the relentless assault of moisture. He shields it desperately, cupping his hands around the flame, feeding it dry leaves and bark. For a moment it flickers, but the storm is merciless. With a hiss, the flame dies, plunging him into total darkness. There is no sound but the roar of the storm. And then, beneath it, something else. A cracking branch, heavy footsteps moving in the night. His heart stops. Predators. The storm may keep smaller creatures away, but it drives the larger hunters into motion. Wolves, wild boar, even the distant roar of a big cat echoes through the valley. The darkness outside is alive with movement, and his shelter is nothing more than a thin veil between him and the wild. He grips his knife, every muscle tense, eyes straining against the void. The storm rages, drowning his senses, forcing him to rely on instinct alone. Lightning flashes, splitting the sky, and for a single heartbeat the forest is illuminated. Shadows dart between the trees. Eyes, cold, reflective, stare back at him before vanishing once more into the dark. Hours drag by like days. He cannot sleep. He cannot rest. Every gust of wind threatens to tear the roof away. Every sound makes his grip on the knife tighten. Hunger gnaws at his stomach, but fear is stronger. Tonight, survival is not about food or water. It is about endurance. It is about outlasting the fury of. The mountain does not allow comfort for long. After the triumph of his first kill, the young man dares to believe survival might grow easier. But the wilderness is a master of balance. For every victory, there is a greater trial. And tonight, that trial arrives on the wings of a storm. At first, it is only the wind, gentle, almost soothing, whistling through the pines. He sits by his fire, staring into the flames, body slowly recovering from days of hunger. Then the trees begin to sway harder, their branches creaking like old bones. The fire sputters, sparks carried away by sudden gusts. He looks up. The stars, once scattered bright across the sky, vanish behind a wall of black clouds. The first drop of rain strikes his cheek. Then another. Within minutes, the heavens open. Torrents of water hammer down, drenching everything. His fire hisses, steam rising as flames collapse into glowing embers. Panic jolts him into action. He throws branches and bark onto the smoldering pit, cupping his hands to shield the flame, but the storm is merciless. The fire dies, swallowed by the rain. Darkness, absolute, crushing. Lightning splits the sky, illuminating the forest in a flash of ghostly white. For a single heartbeat, the world appears. Trees bending, leaves thrashing, shadows dancing. Then darkness returns, thicker than before, accompanied by the rolling growl of thunder. The mountain shakes with its fury. Inside his shelter, he clings to his meager walls as wind tears at the roof. Water pours through the cracks, soaking the floor, chilling his body to the bone. His shelter groans like a wounded beast, and he knows it could collapse at any moment. But the storm is not his only enemy tonight. Between the thunderclaps, he hears them, low growls, snapping twigs, movement in the brush. Predators, drawn by the scent of cooked meat lingering in the air, emboldened by the cover of darkness. He grips his knife, muscles tight, eyes wide though they see nothing. Every sound makes. Dawn breaks over the mountains, and with it, a new urgency. The young man has survived his first night with nothing but fire and sheer willpower, but he knows that without proper shelter, he is at the mercy of nature's wrath. The forest is beautiful, but it is also cruel. Storms can rise without warning. Winds can tear through the trees, and predators lurk in the shadows. To survive here, he must build more than a fire. He must build a home. The search begins. He scans the terrain for a place both hidden and defensible, where he can rest without fear of ambush. After hours of walking, he finds it. A shallow overhang of rock, nestled against a ridge, shielded on one side by towering boulders. It is not perfect, but it is a start. With a spark of determination, he begins the work. Branches are cut, stripped of leaves, and woven into a rough frame. He lays large sticks at angles, creating a sloping roof, then layers it thick with ferns, bark, and moss to keep out the rain. Each movement is deliberate, his hands roughening with blisters, sweat dripping into his eyes. What would take hours in the city, hammering a few nails into a wall, takes days out here. But slowly, steadily, the frame of a shelter begins to rise, a fragile barrier between him and the wilderness. Food remains scarce. As he works, his stomach growls in protest, but hunger cannot stop him. At dusk, he sets traps near animal trails, carefully disguising them with leaves and mud. The traps are simple, loops of vine, pressure trigger snares, but out here, simplicity can mean survival. Each trap is a silent hope, left behind in the shadows of the forest. Night falls again, and he retreats into his half-finished shelter. The walls creak under the wind, and rain seeps through the gaps, chilling him to the bone. He curls closer to the fire, shivering, listening to the howl of unseen predators beyond the treeline. His eyes close, but his sleep is light and broken. Every sound jolts him awake. Every shadow looks ill. The mountain is no longer just a place of trial. It has become a mirror. Every hardship, every storm, every shadow in the night has reflected back pieces of who he truly is. What began as an adventure of survival is now something deeper, something far greater than he imagined. Weeks have passed. His body, once trembling with hunger and weakness, has hardened. The forest that seemed hostile and unforgiving now feels alive with meaning. He moves with rhythm, with instinct, his senses sharpen to every rustle of leaves, every shift in the wind. The wilderness that once sought to break him has become his teacher. One morning, he rises before the sun. His body aches, but his spirit is restless. He climbs higher than he has ever dared, scaling rocks slick with dew, pulling himself upward with fingers raw and bleeding. The air grows thin, cold biting against his skin. Yet he pushes forward, step after step, as if something unseen is calling him to the summit. At last, he reaches it. The peak. The sun bursts over the horizon, spilling gold across the endless sea of mountains. Clouds drift below his feet like an ocean of silver. For the first time in weeks, he does not feel small. He feels infinite, part of something vast and eternal. His chest heaves as he gazes into the horizon, eyes burning with tears he did not expect. Here, on the roof of the mountain, silence is no longer an enemy. It is a companion. The storm no longer feels cruel. It was only a test. The wolves no longer haunt him. They are simply part of the balance. He realizes now that the wilderness was never against him. It was shaping him, stripping away everything unnecessary until only the truth remained. And the truth is simple. Survival is not about resisting nature. It is about becoming one with it. He kneels on the summit, hands pressed to the stone, breath slow and steady. He remembers the fear, the hunger, the loneliness that nearly drove him mad. He remembers the storm, the eyes in the darkness. The storm may have passed, but the wilderness is never still. With the dawn comes silence, an uneasy, heavy silence that hangs between the trees. The young man moves cautiously, his body aching from a night without rest, his hands blistered from gripping the knife. The storm has erased his traps, scattered the animals, and left him with nothing but hunger gnawing deeper into his gut. Yet hunger is not the only danger stalking him. As he wanders near the swollen stream, searching for signs of fish or tracks to follow, he feels it, the prickle of unseen eyes. He stops. The forest is still, too still. Not even birdsong cuts the morning air. Slowly he turns, and there, in the shadows, they emerge. Wolves, lean, gray, silent hunters. Their eyes glint with intelligence, their bodies tense with hunger from nights of scarce prey. 3 of them,